we have a guest in the studio. We have another guest.
We do.
We have a returning guest.
We do.
And it'd be great. Well, it would be great, but it is great to welcome back Brett Thompson from Loddon, Murray.
Welcome, Brett.
Morning, Brett. Morning, Keith. And morning to the moderator. Is your harshest critic still out there listening every week, sending in advice?
I just think our moderator might have dropped off a bit over time. I think perhaps through frustration at, having too big a job, trying to keep tabs on what we're up to and telling us when to shut up.
And the fact that it took me nearly 20 shows to play the waifs.
Yeah, exactly.
That probably didn't help.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, she probably wasn't even listening when you put the waifs on earlier.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me back again. I was saying to Keith earlier, Brett, that compared to last time when I was a little bit worried about who and how many might be listening, I've come in this morning, I guess a little bit more relaxed and with a more happier demeanour, I guess, to talk about something that I'm passionate about. And, so I'm really appreciating this opportunity.
It's great. The spark for this naturally was the fact that you've announced that the 2025 program is going ahead. It's all green light.
Yeah, that's right. So despite ongoing funding challenges, the Loddon Murray board have committed to delivering our Loddon Murray Community Leadership Program in 2025. Last time I was on here, we were talking and discussing about the challenges of acquiring funding for social enterprises and delivering programs that are grassroots and projects, etc. One of the things that we try to bestow on the participants is, if you're passionate about it, commit to it, have a crack, and you'll be surprised at what falls out once you start the process and get that ball rolling. So our board, I think, of being quite courageous and modelling that type of behaviour and saying that, well, in the face of these challenges, we are committed to delivering anyway. And there's some momentum building from that. There's some good signs about what 2025 will look like. Some of it is thanks to being able to tap into what the program looked like pre-government funding back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and other momentum's coming from energy from graduated alumni who are members of the organisation and want to see it continue. So we've got a few applications coming in already, which is exciting to see, and that also creates energy and a bit of a buzz when you start seeing what some of these amazing people in our community are already doing prior to receiving any type of training. And so the future is mind-boggling, really, and endless in potentially what these people will do in years to come. And
I mean, on top of that, extra energy this week because Friday is the graduation for 2024. Is it this Friday?
No, graduation is 29th.
Oh, 29th.
Yeah, 29th November. This Friday and Saturday is the last retreat for 2024 participants.
So it's the final retreat.
Yeah. So emotions get high in a positive sense.
Absolutely.
Lots of love and lots of community spirit around that final retreat. So looking forward to tapping into that. This Friday and Saturday we'll be out at the Inglewood Golf Club, actually, and enjoying some of the catering out there offered by Bridgewater Bakery. Is plugging like that okay on the community radio?
Yes. Yes.
As long as we don't spend too long.
Right. We just can't dwell on them.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So that's and then the graduation on the 29th. Open invite to anyone who wants to, I guess, see what the program is about. But also, the room will be full of our valued sponsors, past participants, our board members, and of course, led by a very distinguished program director, Jude Hanna.
Yeah, the great Jude Hanna. There are that many people out in communities across the region who. A large part of their journey has been the learning they've done with Jude. And Jude does it with such nurturing and encouragement and support for the participants. It's amazing, how they come out the end of it. And having, myself been able to witness the program and what it does firsthand, it's just stunning to see. And I know there's another participant in this year's program who's someone I used to work with, who it's great to see. And as you said, it's not just for people who are starting on a journey of leadership. It's people who are, part way through a journey or might actually be well advanced. It's amazing what you learn and pick up through the program.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that. I think that if there's anyone out there thinking, is this program for me, there's not a set description of what a participant looks like, and the diversity amongst participants brings a lot of the learning to the program throughout the year, and every year that participant cohort looks different and has many different perspectives and backgrounds. We have people this year who have led their communities through flood emergencies and disasters. We have people who have run for state government, people who have been mayors of shire councils, and then we have some brilliant young people in their early to mid-20s who are just starting out their community contributions and journey through sitting on the committee of their local football netball club.
Yeah.
So the spectrum is vast, and everyone is on their own learning pathway, and everyone learns at their own pace, and it all culminates at the end with everyone has made a significant progression from where they started, and it doesn't matter that those starting and end points look different.
Yeah.
It's just a trajectory.
I might just take us back a little bit, because it was a while ago that you were on the show, to just sort of give us a short précis again on, for people who may not have been listening that time, on what Lead Loddon Murray actually is, and what the program is that you're putting together.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. So the Loddon Murray Community Leadership Program started in 1998, and it's grassroots community leadership. So it's not in a corporate environment. It's about community, for community, in community, and delivered by a community. The business Lead Loddon Murray came together thanks to state government funding back in, I think, around 2010.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. And so what that government funding enabled was 9 businesses or 9 community leadership programs in rural Victoria to really be established and supported by a business structure, and hence Lead Loddon Murray and its pre-business names was born.
Yep.
So each year we've been delivering a community leadership program that takes a cohort of between 20 and 25 emerging or established community leaders, and really I think it's a journey of experiencing what it's like to build community, because generally people come into the cohort not knowing anyone else participating in that year, and by the end of the year, every year we hear people talk about how close they've come and they've built lifelong friendships. So that's really what building community is about. And when people leave the program, they want to tap back in and they miss that connection. And I like to tell people or remind people that, hey, you've been through that process and know how it's done. Now you can go and create that in your own community, within your own sporting club, social group, whatever the community interest group you might be involved with, and pass that forward or play that forward and establish those connections in your community, because that's what it's about. It took me a long time to really value what sporting clubs do. It's not just about enjoying an activity together, it's those social connections.
Yeah.
So really tapping into the value of that. So over the course of 9 or 10 months, so the majority of a year, participants go through learning activities and facilitated learning sessions around leadership and what leadership is.
Yeah.
And so I guess under the mantra of we serve best when we're at our best, and to be our best, we've got a view of leadership and what we think is important for people to establish and develop within their own selves, to be that best leader that they can be for community.
I feel like I'm a bit of a broken record about this. I know I keep saying it about this need to build these proper connections, and what you're talking about is these people who on this program build these lifelong friendships, and it's something that really everything has pushed us away from that for so long. And then we had COVID on top of it, but that focus on social media that isn't real relationships. And then you had COVID, which meant that we were all reliant on just trying to keep a relationship almost, online, virtually. It's now feels like out the other side, people are really starved of and wanting to get back to those core relationships and not being reliant on social media and we know the harm that comes from there. Having proper relationships face to face, get to meet people and know people properly. It just seems so important. And I feel like I'm talking about it every show, every week. It's just seems a real shift.
There's some definite core learnings around how you do that. Yeah. And so we spend a lot of time with participants around listening, but also acceptance and being able to accept different perspectives, understanding that other people's values are just as important as your own. You don't have to agree with them or value them to the same extent. But if you understand them and can accept them, then you can meet that person where they're at. And I was reflecting actually on how to phrase some of this messaging, because to talk to someone who's been involved in community building in the past or is experiencing it, you can say a lot of colloquial language and you just get it. You're talking the same stuff. I'm here trying to encourage people to participate in this program who might have a very limited amount of experience in it. So what makes sense to me might not make sense to them at all. So I've got to deliver this message in a way that hopefully your listeners understand and get a grasp of the value of participating in something like this. And it's a hard lesson sometimes, particularly for people really passionate about something. So for example, if I'll go out on a limb here and choose something really controversial or not controversial, but something that gets people's blood up, like it might be acceptance of traditional ownership and what non-ceded land looks like, or transgender stuff, LGBTQI acceptance and things like that. So if I'm a really strong advocate for those things, and I start talking to someone who might be of an older generation, lived fairly in a non-diverse environment, and I start hitting them with these powerful messages, they don't get it, and it's confrontational. So we need to do it in a way that's inviting to people to come in and to start building an acceptance of these issues. And so how you deliver your message is also part of the training. But I think on a more basic level, one of the most important relationships you have is the relationship with yourself. Yeah. And a lot of people come into the program expressing nervousness around public speaking and wanting to really avoid conflict. And so we try to meet those things head on and do some training directly around public speaking and the importance of your message and valuing your message, and also trying to embrace conflict, because if you manage conflict correctly, there's so much to learn and so much to build on it, and you can move so far forward from having experienced it if done correctly. Whereas going back to what you were saying, Brett, about being pushed away from connection, if we run away from conflict, we don't build, and we become even more segregated.
Yes, well, I think there's some stuff going on the other side of the world that could learn a little bit from the Lead Loddon Murray program, because that's, they're not taking the right approach to it. They're not getting to understand other people, and as a result, ended up with two polar opposites that just have no idea how to get along with one another, because they're not sitting down, getting to know the other person, understanding why they've got that approach to things, rather than just, no, this is how you should do it. That's not happening in many parts of the world.
And part of it's the fact that, good leadership, it does mean understanding and holding your values very true. But it doesn't mean insisting that it's about understanding that other people's values are just as valid as yours to them. And one of the ones, and this comes from the days of the program, I can't remember his name, but there was a Labor member for around Newcastle sort of area, and then one of the truly decent politicians out there is Darren Chester out in Gippsland, who's a Nationals member, but he's a guy who doesn't walk the path of the Nationals, or what you would regard traditionally as Nationals. But he and this Labor MP had a really close personal bond, despite the fact that they had vastly differing personal values and it's about respecting the other person's point of view, but not giving up on your own, but not turning it into conflict then. And yes, we've the world and, using the US especially as a view of it, and Australian federal politics is not that different in that it becomes, why do you have to be enemies? Just because you have different perspectives on life, it doesn't mean you should be enemies. And unfortunately, the approach of one of the candidates in America is about creating division, not about trying to embrace, whereas the other one is actually a message of saying, no, we've got to come together. Because despite the fact that we may have differing values, we've got to work together because, the old thing, together everyone achieves more. Well, it is true. I mean, it might be a homily and something pretty basic, but it's absolutely true. And to me, the importance of understanding yourself and being confident enough in yourself to go, as you said, Brett, to where the other person is, rather than saying, you have to come to me all the time. Yeah. It's, really, vital. Important.
We might listen to a couple of tracks.
Yeah.
Give everyone a bit of a breather.
It's heavy. Leadership is heavy.
It is. Carries a bit on your shoulders too sometimes.
Yeah.
We are going to listen to, in this All Oz Music Month, we're All Oz Music every month anyway, but
every week we're All Oz Music on the Phatt.
Yeah. We're going to go back to a ripper Australian band. One of my favourites over the years to go and see live. And we're going to have a listen to the Cat Empire.
Oh, man. One of only two bands I've ever seen make a whole oval of people bounce as one.
Yeah.
And the other one was Madness. And you can understand Madness getting people. But Cat Empire, yep.
All right. Let's have a listen. You're listening to The Phatt on Phoenix FM. Phoenix FM, you're tuned into The Phatt, and we're chatting with Brett Thompson from Lead Loddon Murray. Just before we get further into that conversation, we got a bit deep before, and we'll probably get deep again.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the conversation. But before that, we heard from Balladeer, who's an artist from down in Geelong, and her song Shipwreck Coast, which just came out last Wednesday, I think. Balladeer will be up here in Bendigo on the 14th of December, I believe, at Bendigo Records. Really promising young Australian artist. Was a finalist in the International Songwriting Competition last year.
Awesome.
With her track Care Too Much. So, yeah, big fan of Bella. Really nice person. Who... certainly has some leadership values in itself, I think. So just the way she just inspires people to get up and about and get involved in music and like. Anyway, that's what we're talking about this morning, is with Brett Thompson from Lead Loddon Murray, who have just announced that their 2025 program is going to be up and running, which was... There were some questions for a little while because it all comes down to funding and like, but the board have made the decision that they're moving forward and applications are now open, Brett.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess the big question might be, well, how do I apply? So I'm glad you asked.
Here's something he prepared earlier.
Exactly. We have an application form and an application process that we go through to put the cohort together. As I said, we love diversity amongst the group because we get a lot of learning happening just from participants having conversations and sharing observations and perspectives about learning content. And so on our website, which is leadlm.org.au, www.org.au/LMCLP. There is a link there to an application form for anyone who wants to fill that out and tell us about what you currently do or what you aspire to do in community. And then the process from there is we'll likely have a chat with you and try to the cohort that we choose, with a mind to setting up the diversity of the cohort. We'll try and match people with sponsors to get them a sponsored position within the program. We also are open to taking forward a couple of self-funded participants. If people are able to afford to self-fund their place in the program, then we're also happy to accept that. And our region that we operate in and that we take participants from is from Gisborne or the Macedon Ranges Shire right up to Swan Hill. The Campaspe River is basically the border to our east, and we take participants through Bullock, Gunnawarra, Loddon, Central Goldfields Shires.
Yeah. It's quite, just looking at the application phase of it, and clearly, there's a lot of work goes into this because it's quite, and if people get sponsored to do it, it's quite a bit that you're being sponsored. About $11,000 is the employer fee to get people into the program. So it's a substantial program.
Yeah, so the $11,000 is if your employer wishes to put you through it as a training and development opportunity for you, then that's the $11,000. Other sponsorship levels are at different levels for any potential interested funders out there. We can have a chat about that, depending on the size of your organisation and what your goals are. But yeah, it is a significant investment by our sponsors or by an individual themselves. And we tell participants, you get out of it what you put into it. And sometimes you need to let people be where they are and come to their own realisations and conclusions. But we do want to serve our sponsors well and make sure that our sponsors are getting a good return on that investment with someone who's participating to their fullest and trying to get as much growth and development out of the experience. To then take that forward, and it's not just about that participation in the program, it's what they actually give back to community following the program as an effective member, effective leader in their community, whether that's in their on a board or on a committee, or leading from behind as a member of an organisation, or even just as a parent at a school. How you behave when not in a position of leadership on paper is also important to leading community and our culture that we establish within our communities.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to be written on paper for you to be a leader.
Yeah.
No, it's a small part of it, a very small part.
And sometimes people feel like the program might not be accessible to them because they don't see themselves as a leader, or they're looking at leadership in terms of management. And so it's a bit of a cliche, but managers are appointed and leaders have followers, and you don't need to be appointed in order to have followers. And so we're really focusing on that. So I'm really proud as a past participant that I'm involved in something that welcomes in someone from a rural, regional environment that may not have access to training through employment or through location, to be involved in something that is really transformational and can really give them the power to be self-confident and have self-worth about what they can contribute to their community. And I think those who aren't in service of community in one way or another potentially miss out on some magic that is the fulfilment of being in service. And just a small thank you, or seeing someone get positive value out of a contribution you've made, is really fulfilling and empowering to go again.
Having sort of probably had both roles, where paid to be in that management type role and to leadership type role, to then also doing it in community, I get it. I find it so much more rewarding in community rather than actually the paid side of it. That was just like something that you had to do. You felt obliged to do almost. But when you're just doing it because you actually give two hoots. It feels a lot more rewarding when you see the results.
Yeah, and we have participants come in knowing what they value, knowing what they're passionate about, knowing what they want to contribute to. And then we have other participants, which is aligns with my personal story, where I didn't know where my value laid and what I could contribute, but I knew that I wanted to definitely be of service and also model service to my children. And so the program leads people through identifying their values and identifying their passions, even to the point of identifying what's blocking you from actually making this contribution and serving in the way that your values are saying you want to or you desire to. So it can really be really profound in that sense of leading you to identifying what you can do and where you will add value, and playing to your strengths, building on your weaknesses if you choose to, and stepping forward back into community with that confidence.
We probably should sort of clarify what it is, that commitment, if people are to get involved. What is that expectation going to be in that period from March to November 2025?
Yeah, great. So we try to make you, the participant, feel very important. And so we go out of our way to have a launch event, and an orientation day, I guess, which starts off the year, and that'll be in March, and we conclude with a graduation event in November. And in between, for 2025, we're looking at a program that consists of 5 two-day retreats, so an overnighter, and you get to do some travel around our region and stay in different parts of the region so that you get some context of the region that you're part of, not just your own backyard. And then in between those 2-day, one-night retreats, we have some single program days that'll be concentrate more towards the centre of the region to limit travel and look after people that way. But again, being out in community. And then those face-to-face times are supported by some Zoom sessions online that are kept as short as possible. We don't have full-day Zoom sessions where you're staring at screens. No one really wants to go back to that, I don't think. No. But 1 to 2 hours, or with a really significant facilitator with important messaging, you can stretch it out further. To facilitate, I guess, learning that will support the experiences and activities during the face-to-face times. So each retreat, I guess, has a theme, and the themes start with the individual, so the leadership of self, or setting up some regional context, and then some leadership of self, leadership of others, leading change and using influence, and then leading for impact. So leading for impact is left to was what the participants will experience this weekend coming up with the final retreat, to really springboard them into the following year and what they may be involved with, and what they're going to contribute to communities in the following year. So in amongst those sort of themes, some of the things I've mentioned previously, like deep listening skills, coaching skills, public speaking, managing confrontation, understanding different personalities, and then the self-work of identifying your own values, and then learning the value of reflecting and reflective practice, and then through that combination of identifying your values and reflecting on your days and your experiences, it helps you develop and identify your own value-based behaviours. So the way you behave reflects what you value, which we've mentioned social media already. Our devices and our apps are designed to hold our attention, and I'm guilty of it too. You end up burning more time than you realise, flicking through stuff that doesn't really align with your values and what you want to achieve in your day, whether it be time with your kids, time with your partner, time in your yard, time with your dog. If you value those things, why are you giving time to something that's actually meaningless, or not aligned with your values. So we try to help people identify their own behaviours that align with their values, and everything sort of flows from that. We encourage your values to include inclusivity and non-judgment and being aware of bias and things like that, so that it is community related and open to community.
And the skills of the people that come in to do these special sessions and that, I mean, you've got Jude herself who
amazing,
who runs the program, and she's incredible. But then the specialist skills that come in to support what Jude's doing in the message, they're just superb. And, you know, yes, I say this from having been involved in the organisation myself, but having spent so many years in the corporate world before that and done no end of corporate leadership programs, the fact that this is over effectively a 10-month period is about embedding this within you as well, rather than the one-off weekend retreat that then you do it and that feels fantastic, rah, and then you walk away and it's not reinforced. This gives you learning and then reinforces the learning as you go along. And also Brett, there's the expectation that there's a community project that they're working on, or at least conceiving while they're going through the program, and starting to crystallise within their head. And that's once again about saying, well, let's put it into practice. And so the fact that, yes, it potentially costs $11,000 if you want your employer to, it is worth so much more than that. If it was actually valued at what they value these sort of programs within the commercial world, it would cost multiple times that to go through it. And I believe it's just really effective. And I think of some of the people who have gone on. You've got mayors of Loddon Shire, Macedon Ranges, of Central Goldfields. You've got people in Bendigo here who are running large not-for-profits who went through the program and got their foundational leadership out of this. There are a lot of people around the region who are running your football clubs and your netball clubs and all sorts of organisations who have also gone through this. So the value that it then produces for the communities, it's something I'm really passionate about. And the fact that it's something, you know, in all honesty, state government should be putting money into still. And hopefully they get their head back to that, because this is about the communities that they should be supporting, the multiple outcomes from this are just huge.
I'm really glad you brought up the guest speakers and facilitators, Keith, because I think the last thing adults want to do is sign up to something where for 8 hours they're going to sit in front of a PowerPoint presentation, being spoken to, reading lots of words, and that's not what we're about. We understand adult learning a bit more than that, and so we've got a balance of experts. So Leah Satori has studied leadership at a tertiary level. Great. Bring her in. Let's hear about leadership and her views and observations. Balance that out with people sharing lived experience. But also the learning isn't about listening to the messages. Sure, share us your idea, but let us practice and let us do an activity where we're trying to use this idea and we're experiencing this idea with our own effort and our own practice. And that's where, you know, adult learning can be fun and interactive, and you're having a go. And that's how we try to set up the learning experiences.
You're meeting good people. We might have a listen to a track and some sponsors, and then we'll come back. And I'd like to talk a little bit too. I find that leading for change really interesting. Topic.
We could spend time on that, Brett.
Yes. All right, we're going to have a listen to a new song from Thelma Plum called Cowboy in the Rain. You're listening to The Phatt on Phoenix FM. We are chatting with Brett Thompson from Loddon Murray, and we've been talking all things leadership today. And one of the things you mentioned before, Brett, about the leading for change. And it is, I know it's a big focus of a lot of organisations now, is to make sure, because they know this is one of the most challenging things that people just in their life, like when you look at the data on what people find the most difficult stages, the most stressful periods of their life, it's pretty much all around when there's a change. It's not just, sitting at home and everything's the same as it was yesterday. It's when they're required to embrace a change, or a change is forced upon them. It can be one of the most difficult things. Leading people through that, as a result, can also be one of the most difficult things. So you mentioned before about that being a significant part of your program, was helping people with that.
So leading for change comes after the halfway mark. So I guess consider that there's some learning that happens prior to getting to that point. And a little bit of a nugget that happens prior to that point is the idea that we can influence how we feel about things by how we think about things. We can't influence our feelings, but we can influence or control, but we can control how we think about things. Yeah. Now, when it comes to change, there's a cliche that people don't like change. And I invite you to challenge your thinking on that for a moment. If I was to say, I'm going to change your life by handing you millions of dollars, or I'm going to change your life by giving you the job that you've always wanted, the car that you always wanted, I'm going to ensure that your children and family's health is guaranteed for life. These are significant changes that I'm sure that are positive, and that I'm sure people would embrace. So it's not change people don't like; it's negative change, or it's change they don't understand, or it's change that's confronting or challenging their values and beliefs. So I think, first of all, if you want to make a change, let's try and change the way people think about change. And so you've got to start at a strength-based or a positive beginning point. What is it that people love about the community objective that you're working with? What is it people like? What is it that people want to see in the future of that? And if people are adverse to change, then they're going to be adverse to bringing younger people in. And if you want your community group to thrive into the future, you need to bring younger people in and new blood in. So first of all, let's try and think about change in a different way. It's change that's positive. It's change that's inclusive. It's change that's inviting and welcoming, and it's change that meets people where they're at. So if people want to do it a different way when they take over the reins, how much does that matter if the community organisation is surviving and is still alive and is still serving its overall objective and purpose? I understand, and it can be hard to get people to change. So influence is a big thing. Modelling behaviour is a big thing when you're involved at a committee level or a leadership level. And one of the other things with change that is a lesson I've learnt from an Indigenous perspective, and I thank the Indigenous lecturers at La Trobe Uni who've been involved in some of my studies recently. One of the big lessons they taught me is about time, and giving people time. And anyone who's tried to rush through building a relationship with an Indigenous group will know that it's frustrating if you're trying to get it done in a short period of time. And so I've taken that on board and put it into other aspects of life, and it's so true. You just need to give change time.
Brilliant.
Yes, give change time.
Well, thank you for your time, Brett.
Yes.
It's been fantastic to have you back in. So
get those applications in.
leadlm.org.au/LMCLP if you want to have a look at the program.
And what's the cut-off date for applications?
Orientation if we're still looking for the right people. But, so don't worry about time too much. It's more about the participants getting the application in and getting signed up and knowing what they're doing for the year.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Look, really appreciate you coming in, Brett. It's quite inspiring what you're doing there at Lead Loddon Murray, and finding the right people is probably part of the challenge at the start. But once you get them, how you embrace them is really...
And look, everyone's the right person. Everyone is the right person at the right time. And with the right mindset. So I invite anyone to have a chat with me or Jude, and let's see where